We're living in changing times. We're living in a changing America. I believe there are certain pivotal moments in life, in history, in the life and history of nations, where there's a paradigm shift, if you will. I believe in recent days, we've seen one of those pivotal moments. The Supreme Court's recent decision, which in fact was an act of judicial tyranny, it legalized gay marriage in all 50 states, which, by the way, the agenda of these folks is not simply equal rights, but it's to promote a particular lifestyle and agenda while being intolerant of anything different. The very fabric of our nation is changing. The very roots of our nation seems to be severing. More than ever, we see evidence of the change in American culture, the toleration and celebration of sin, the attack on biblical truths. Today's program is a message and a warning concerning the days ahead. America was founded on and celebrates religious freedom for everyone. And though there are those who deny it, it was founded on biblical truths and principles. In that way, it was established as a Christian nation. But what about now? What about living in a post-Christian America? How much, when a decision is made like this, and this is only one, but it's a major one. When a decision is made, how much does that really bother you? How much does it affect your life? Does life just go on as normal, the way it usually is? You get up the next morning and nothing has really changed. It may seem that way for a while. But this is just a step. More steps to follow. How much does this alarm you? How will this change America? How will it affect the church? How will it affect you and your family? Now we know that in recent years this government has been ruled by political correctness. There's an agenda that has been set, and this is the only way to believe. Anything other than that is being a bigot, narrow-minded. You must believe the way you are told to believe. A way has been established as right, and we will accept no other opinions and no other ways. And now, by the ruling made by the Supreme Court, gay marriage has been established as a constitutional right, putting it on equal level with the marriage of man and woman. It has redefined marriage. Nothing's like that has ever happened here before. Nothing. There have been people who believe that, but never has there been a government who officially took a stand and said, we are declaring that marriage is now not the way God said it was. Never has that happened. And it won't happen without consequences. When it is established as a constitutional right, we have to understand that it is a civil right. And now anyone who opposes this rule now is breaking the law. Anyone who speaks out against it technically could be held accountable as breaking the law and committing a hate crime. Any one of you that speaks out against it, you're violating someone's civil rights. This was more than just a decision about sexual preference, folks. This is about an entire agenda. This is about essentially shutting down Christianity. This is about shutting down religious freedom and liberty. This is about fundamentally transforming this nation. This is what it's about. You know, political correctness. It seems like today that it's a crime to offend anybody except Christians and except God. That doesn't matter. Say anything you want to. How is this going to affect us? Well, I think that there will be further deterioration of the institution of marriage and the family as a result of this. It's already in trouble, but I think that as the course is set now, I'm just talking about if the direction continues as it is now. I'm not painting a picture that's bleak and without hope. Don't get me wrong. Don't get this wrong. We'll get there before I get through today. But as we're moving right now, there's a further deterioration of the institution of marriage and family. Because of what's happening now, children will be indoctrinated in this. They're already being indoctrinated in this. By media. What's some of the children's programs? See if this agenda that was approved by the Supreme Court, see if it's not promoted there. It absolutely is. NEA, the National Education Association, many educators are involved in this. Many people who are writing curriculum for schools. You understand that in a matter of a few years, unless there's a change, that children who are being trained now will see this idea of the redefinition of marriage. They'll see this as being the norm. It will be those who believe in the old-fashioned, it's only for man and woman, that will be the narrow-minded, bigoted. Those are the people that are incorrect. Now we have a greater understanding. We're more progressive. Children will be further indoctrinated in this. You can write it down. Guard your children. You can expect it. It'll happen. There'll be an increased chaos and evil in the nation. Look at the climate of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible if you want to get any idea. I think there'll be greater persecution and attack on Christians and on religious liberty because of this, because gay rights trumps religious liberty in their understanding. Just as we are now seeing a cultural purging of the South. Just as we are now seeing a cultural purging of the South to say, we'll not accept you, we'll not accept what you do. Just as you're seeing that now, you just wait until these activists spread out over the nation, probably in government tax-paid money being used for it, spread out over the government and show up in places to challenge people who oppose this new ruling. There will be greater persecution as a result of this. As a result of this, the nation, the United States, will be more vulnerable than ever before as a nation in this world. When you step out from under God's provision and His protection, you open yourselves up to the enemy. And if we thought America was vulnerable to the attack of other nations before now, you just wait in the coming months. We have now placed ourselves in more danger than ever before. And people say, well, what does that have to do with national defense? You understand this has to do with the fact of the arm of God to be there as your protector and your provision, to bless the nation who names Him as Lord. Not perfect, but a nation who openly declares that He is God will sit under His blessings. But one who defies Him will step out from under that. And the result is catastrophic. You know, throughout the Old Testament, you'll see a cycle. Back when I was in graduate school, I as a part of one entire course that we did, I wrote a paper on and built a study around this cycle that happened. I call it the cycle of revival. But it's a cycle that took place in the Old Testament, still has taken place since the Old Testament. I even see it in the church. And the cycle is always, regardless, it's always this way in every situation. It begins with a people that God blesses a people. They're His children. He has chosen them. He is blessing them. They're His family. They are experiencing the favor of God. And things get so good that they start taking Him for granted. So the wheel begins to turn and the cycle begins. And they go from a place of blessing to a place of self-sufficiency. I don't really need God anymore. Everything's good. And from that they go on around the cycle till they become complacent. And then from that, you turn the wheel a little bit more and you come to a place, you come to a place that this is important for us to know. You come to a place of a moral decay and idolatry. And then when you fall into this place of moral decay and idolatry, then the cycle comes, the result of that is curse. You've taken yourself out from under the blessing of God. The result of that is now persecution and suffering and bad things. The result of that is there's consequences. There's a price to pay. And then when you get to that place, guess what you do? The way the nation of Israel did over and over again. When they got into a place of slavery and bondage, had nowhere else to turn, things were dark, things were hopeless, guess what they did? They cried out to God. The God who had blessed them to begin with. They cried out to God and said, God, we repent, forgive us. And though they suffered much, and though there were still consequences to pay, you know what God did? He forgave them and restored them over and over. You would think you'd soon learn a lesson, wouldn't you? We haven't learned it yet. You would think you'd soon learn a lesson. The same cycle can happen to an individual, not just to a corporate group. We have to ask ourselves, where are we? Where are we right now? God has blessed America. Extremely so. Like no other nation, really. Because of the obedience and because of the purpose of God upon this nation, established as a Christian nation, because the founders of this nation who regardless of the imperfection there, regardless of the things that were done that were wrong and harmful perhaps to other people, the purpose there was to promote, to share, to spread the gospel of the good news of Jesus Christ as Savior, and to let it be a light to the entire world. The founders of this nation understood that we're here because of the grace and the goodness of God. It's providence. God designed it. They understood that. And they built a government upon that. And it was a government that would always stand as long as it remembered that. And it has. Up to now, it has. The subject on today's program is quite controversial, and I want to make it quite clear that this is not an attack on anyone. As believers, we're to love others. Now, that means we hate the sin, but we love the people, the individuals. That love is to be genuine. Loving someone doesn't mean you support or condone their actions. Regardless of a person's lifestyle or beliefs, Jesus died for them. We all need forgiveness, and we all need a Savior. It is, however, important for us to stand up as believers, to stand against the attack on the Bible, on Christianity, to stand for truth. There's an all-out assault on religious liberty in our country. There's a growing anti-Christian sentiment, and there's a culture calling good evil and evil good. This is a pivotal moment. It's a time to pray. It's a time to stand. Call or go online today to get this entire message, Living in a Post-Christian America, 7 things you need to know. I believe it's so important, we want to make it available to you absolutely free. Simply call or go on our website and request offer 528, Living in a Post-Christian America. Where's America now? And certainly we've been blessed. We're still being blessed with God. In a lot of everything, we're still blessed. It's amazing. The goodness of God, His mercy. Have we moved around the cycle there to where America has in many places and with many people become complacent and satisfied now? Spiritually cold, indifferent. Things of God are not that important. They're all tied up with other things. Are we around that point? I think, yeah. Have we moved to a point of moral decay? Has this nation moved to moral decay and to idolatry? Not worshiping woods and stones, but worshiping a lot of other things here in America other than God. There's one place we haven't really quite arrived at yet. Do you know what the next step is? Suffering and persecution. Facing difficult days and darkness. We're not, there are challenges today. Yeah, there's some tough times you may face. You may be persecuted, but we're not there. But that is where we're headed. Without some turnaround, That is where it's headed, because Christianity is going to be persecuted more. I mean, man, it has just been turned up a notch or two. You know, God loves America. He's heartbroken and hurt and righteously angry over this. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 34, very familiar passage that we often use around this time of year in particular. Proverbs 14:34 says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. The Amplified puts it this way: uprightness and right standing with God, moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation elevates a nation. Godliness makes a nation great, but sin is a disgrace to any people. Godliness makes a nation strong, avoiding God makes people weak. Folks, that's just true. That's absolutely true. Franklin Graham said, I pray God will spare America from His judgment, though by our actions as a nation we give Him less and less reason to do so. We know there's really only one truly Supreme Court. Human beings cannot sit on it. The decrees are always right, and the exact date of the final session, though hidden from men, has been decreed. There will be a final word on this, and it doesn't come from the Supreme Court of America. Abraham Lincoln, it's believed that Abraham Lincoln said these words, America will never be destroyed from outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it'll be because we destroyed ourselves. Now we understand that in the light of what we call the Civil War, but it goes much further than that. I remember, I'm one of the few people here that remember seeing this live. In the 50s, I was a mere child, but I was old enough to know what I was saying. Watching a black and white, there was no color. I thought we'd arrived when they created this little plastic screen you could put over your black and white TV and make it turn into a color television. But everything was either green or blue or whatever. It just didn't work. It was 4-color television, black and white television. This little guy stood up in the United Nations. He stood there, took his shoe off and banged it on the rostrum there, angry and mad. His name was Nikita Khrushchev. He was the premier, the ruler of the Soviet Union at that time. And he prophesied something there. His prophecy was, we will take America without firing a shot. We will bury you. Now, this was said in a building in a city where we pretty much pay the bills, even though they say we're in debt. This was said on American soil. How tragic is that? It's a free nation, we're told. He says, we do not have to invade the U.S. We will destroy you from within. He said that in the 50s. He's been long gone. But was this a prophecy yet to be fulfilled? The roots of American culture and community is in disarray. War has been declared on us. It is not only by terrorists, not only by ISIS and Islam, not only by atheists and agnostics and liberals, but it's been declared upon us by our own government in many ways. And certainly the author of that is Satan himself. The series, the next couple of Sundays, we'll go a little bit different direction next Sunday, but then the couple Sundays following, I hope that you're in town, I hope that you're here, or that you'll get the message, because a couple of things I feel like are very, very important. I mean, we'll have them on television, but they're very important. The question we ask ourselves, and the title for the message today is, how should we live in a post-Christian America? How are you supposed to live? How are we supposed to live as Christians as a post-Christian America? Well, people may ask, well, Pastor, have you just thrown up your hands and surrendered and said, America is through, is gone? This is a right now in the climate that we're living in, this is a post-Christian America right now. You understand? You say, well, there's still thousands upon thousands of Christians and believers. Yes, I've not forgotten that, and I think their voice will be heard more and more and more. I pray that our voice will be heard. We can't guarantee it'll be heard, but we can definitely say something, speak something, do something about it. But in comparison to years gone by, the climate of America, the atmosphere, the environment is totally different, and so we have to learn, what should our response be? Since America has changed, how should we then live? As Christians, how should we live? Well, let me name some things very quickly that I point to. We'll revisit these things, but I think it's important for me to name them. They're extremely important. They may not be that secretive or deep, but they are very important. In a time like this, it is a time more than ever to purify our hearts. People look at the word holiness negatively because they look at it and say, well, it just means there's all kinds of rules and regulations. I'm supposed to live a certain way, and someone's always pointing. That's not what holiness is. Holiness is a desire to be like God. Now, we're made righteous by His grace. Absolutely. You can't be righteous by yourself. You can't. There's nothing good there until you experience His love and His grace. But then from that, folks, we're supposed to live Christ-like lives. We understand that? Not by a set of regulations, but we're supposed to be like Christ. Our decisions are supposed to be made based upon what would Jesus do. You understand? I think what this brings about now is it's time for a house cleaning. We always said, sweep under your own doorstep first. And the call of God to the church today is, sweep under your own doorstep first. Church, it's time to come to a place of realizing that He is a holy God. It's a love, it's holy love, but He's a holy God. He deserves our best. He deserves our best. He deserves our all. He deserves a genuine and pure heart who takes pleasure in following Him. He deserves it, folks. Our heart should be tuned in that anything that we allow there to be contrary to His will and contrary to His word, we should want to confess and be rid of it. If it's wrong relationships, if it's a bad witness, if it's wrong priorities, whatever it is, it's time for a checkup. I want to challenge you today, but I want to challenge you this week. Get before the Lord. Open your heart and say, Lord, I just want you, show me what's in my life. Show me if there's an improper relationship. Show me if I'm doing things that are contrary to your will. Show me if there's some areas of disobedience where I'm bringing harm to the cause of Christ. Show me if there's some things in my family that needs to change. Show me, God. Show me what to do. I open my heart to you. Purify my heart. Change me. Let me tell you something. When the church makes that kind of decision and choice, something powerful happens. And you're no longer playing games again as a little religious group. You're a powerful force for God. But not if we're half-hearted. Not if we're compromisers. Not if we just are willing to do so much and then no more. This is about a total surrender. Completely. Don't do it legalistically. Don't be judgmental. Don't begin to point a finger around and say, well, here, you need to clean your house. You need to clean your house. You need to straighten this up. Start here. Start with your own heart. Start with your own life and say, God, listen, no doubt many of those things will be just very small and insignificant in the light of what people call bad things or sins. It's the little things that oftentimes bring so much harm. It's little things you allow in your life that do harm to the cause of Christ and that hurt your witness as a believer. It's little things that keep you from walking in the blessing of God. Little things. Let Him clean you up. It's time for some soul searching. It's time for some house cleaning. There's no room for half-hearted, complacent, compromising Christianity today. It's time to turn to the Lord, to ask Him to cleanse our hearts and to change us. 1 Peter chapter 4 tells us that judgment begins in the house of God. It starts with us. Now, judgment here means to pick out or to select. It's a process through which the church is purified and strengthened, set apart from the world system. It's time to take courage. The gospel is still the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes. The gospel is still good news. It's not time to wring our hands in fear. Luke chapter 1 tells us that when we see the things happening that we see happening in the world today, that we're to lift up our heads. Our redemption is getting close. It's getting near. The Message Bible says, when this begins to happen, stand tall with your heads high. Help is on the way. Call or go online today and request your CD, your copy of Living in a Post-Christian America, offer $5.28. Now, we don't know what lies ahead. Can America return? Is there hope? Do we simply give up after all that's been prophesied? No, we never stop praying. We never start calling out to God. Believe for a mighty move of God and say, it starts with me. It starts with you. Pray for our nation. Remember that regardless of the world conditions, regardless of troubles around you, you can experience God's provision, His peace, His power to live in victory.
To find out more about Life in Focus TV, or for a free CD or DVD of this message, you can contact us at our website, lifeinfocustv.com. That's lifeinfocustv.com. And join us each week as we discover how to live life to its fullest, a life with passion, purpose, and provision.